Chapter 13. "I'll go get my truck ready if you three want to grab your stuff," Abby said, watching as the woman walked off into the darkness. "Sounds great," Kara said, moving toward the jet. "It won't take me but a minute." "More like a second," Ariel said, turning away with a sad grin. "Give us about 10 minutes to secure everything and we'll be along," Tricia said, shaking her head as she watched Kara disappear into the plane. "Some of us don't move at Mach 10. Abby laughed as she carried her overnight bag toward the parking lot. She gave a small sigh when she felt Zoran's symbiot reach out to her symbiosis. She felt his warmth and relief come through. She smiled, happy to be home. Moving around to the driver's side of the truck, she was just unlocking the door when she felt something behind her. She started to turn when she was pushed up against the side, her arms pinned. She let out a startled scream that quickly turned to a whimper when her arms were pulled painfully back behind her. "Hush, Abby. I told you I always know where you were," Clay said in a harsh whisper near her ear. "I missed you, baby, even if it was only for one day. I don't like it when you leave." Abby shivered. Clay's voice sounded different, scary. "Clay! What are you doing? You're scaring me." Clay slid a pair of handcuffs onto Abby's wrists, snapping it tight over the symbiot. "Don't try anything, Abby. I didn't like what you did the other day. I'm going to have to punish you for that." Abby whimpered again as she felt him pull her head back by her hair. He looked at her neck in the soft glow of the parking lights. "What the hell is that? Who the hell put that mark on you?" Abby cried out when he pulled her head back even further when she didn't answer him right away. Zoran put his mark on me. I belong to him," Abby whispered. Clay let out a soft expletive. "Not any longer. You're mine. I've played your fucking game for 4 fucking years. You're mine, Abby, and when I get done with you, you'll know it." Abby started to protest when she felt a sharp sting in her neck, and everything went black. "Hey, Abby, you okay?" Kara asked as she moved toward the truck. "Ariel and Tricia are on their way. It didn't take—" Kara's words died off as she saw Abby crumple against the man. The man's head jerked up when he heard Kara call out. Pulling a gun from behind him, he aimed it at Kara and pulled the trigger. Kara was already hitting the pavement when a soft pop went off. Within moments, the man picked Abby up and slung her over his shoulder, letting off another round of gunfire as he moved. Kara was rolling toward a golf cart parked nearby. She jumped, startled, when she felt a hand on her arm and let out a small scream. "Shh, it's me, Carmen," Carmen said, kneeling next to Kara. She looked up when she saw Ariel and Tricia running toward them. "Shit, what happened?" Tricia said. "Some asshole waylaid Abby. From the little I was able to gather, he isn't too happy she didn't choose him instead of this Zoran guy. He stuck her with something and has her cuffed. I'm going to follow him. Keep your line open. I might need some backup," Carmen said, before running toward a motorcycle hidden in the dark between 2 hangars. "We need wheels," Ariel muttered darkly, watching as a truck peeled out from the airport. Carmen didn't bother turning on the lights on her bike. She pulled the fast but quiet Yamaha YAF R1 motorcycle after it, popping up onto one wheel when she floored it. "On it," Kara said, shakily moving toward Abby's truck. Within seconds, she had the engine running. When Ariel and Tricia jumped in the front seat and looked at her in a funny way, she couldn't help but add, "I used to have a problem with taking vehicles for a spin." Kara slid the truck into gear and tore off after Carmen and the truck. "Call Carmen. Ask her which direction." Ariel pushed a button on her cell phone, and within seconds, Carmen answered. "He's headed north on the highway toward the mountains. I'm on his tail, but he can't see me. I'm running dark." Ariel couldn't help the shiver that went down her spine. "Carmen, don't play around. I need you," she added softly. She was afraid Carmen was going to do something stupid. She had been taking more and more risks lately, almost as if she were daring death to come get her. Just cover me. I'm not going to let anything happen to her, Carmen said. Should we call the local authorities? Kara asked as she turned the wheel sharply, punching the gas pedal as far as it would go. Damn, I need to work on her truck. The acceleration on this thing sucks. Trisha rolled her eyes. Only you would be thinking about something like that while chasing down bad guys in the middle of nowhere. Hey, I can work on more than one thing at a time, Kara said as she took another turn, sliding the truck around and fishtailing a little. Both Ariel and Trisha let out a string of expletives they had learned while in the Air Force. Kara just laughed. She had taken more than one joyride in her life and never been caught by the police who had been chasing her. Zoran communicated with his brothers at a high pitch undetectable to human ears. Abby is hurt. I felt her pain before darkness descended. Can you find her? Keelan asked as he glided up beside Zoran. Yes, the symbiots are trying to heal her. They are too small and too young to do much. They will try to help her as much as possible. They are sending a signal to mine, which is directing me, Zoran replied, trying to keep the rage and fear out of his voice. He would kill the man who had hurt Abby. Do you know who it is? Traylon asked as he flew up on the other side of Zoran. Yes, it is the same man who has been after Abby for years. He had become more aggressive over the past week. He wishes to claim Abby for his own. I will kill him, Zoran said with a growl. The three dragons flew low down the side of the mountain, veering in and out through the tall trees toward the highway below. As they came over one last group of trees, they saw headlights moving down the highway at a high speed. Swerving into a deep dive, Zoran collapsed his wings to give him speed before pulling up at the last minute as the truck suddenly hit its brakes and turned onto a side road. Zoran let out a curse as he swept up in an effort to slow his descent. There's someone following him on another transport. No lights, Keelan said behind Zoran, his huge wings pushing down air as he held himself still above the trees. Zoran saw a figure on a small, dark transport slide at the last minute to take the turn onto the road. If they mean to help him harm my mate, kill them, Zoran growled. Pushing up over the trees, Zoran, Traylon, and Keelan followed the lights weaving in and out of the darkness. There was not enough room for them to land safely in their dragon forms as yet. Zoran reached out again for Abby, but all he felt was a frightening blankness where her warmth had been before. Traylon, fly ahead and block the road up ahead. Wait for us there. Keelan, fall behind. I heard another vehicle approaching at a high rate of speed. We will trap all of them together and kill them, Zoran said, focused on the truck. What of you? Traylon asked. I think it is time to introduce myself to those who mean to harm my true mate, Zoran said with a snarl before diving down through the trees. Traylon flew just ahead of the truck and spewed a concentrated burst of dragonfire at the base of the trees along each side, causing them to splinter and fall across the road. Keelan curved back along the road toward the vehicle coming up behind them. He did the same, trapping all the vehicles between the fallen trees. There was no place for anyone to go but through the woods. It didn't matter. They had already been sentenced to death as far as the brothers were concerned. Clay glanced at Abby to make sure she was still unconscious. He waited too damn long for her to lose her now. He was furious that she thought he would give up. When he saw her for the first time 4 years ago, he knew she was going to be his. He followed her around, letting everyone know she belonged to him. He enjoyed the game of the hunt. She never suspected he had placed tracking devices on her vehicles or tapped into her phone. He had placed motion detectors at the base of her driveway and monitored her mail to make sure there was no one else. He toyed with her. If her granddad hadn't died unexpectedly, he would have been dead by now anyway. Clay had already made plans to take him out. He wanted Abby to depend on him and no one else. She had grown even more beautiful over the last 4 years as he waited for her to blossom, as he knew she would. His body wanted to do things to hers she probably had never dreamed of. Things he had done to some of the women overseas when he was in the military. They could never pin anything on him, just suspected he was involved in the disappearance of the women. He made sure no one ever found the pieces that were left after he got done with them. He could feel himself getting hard at the thought of tying Abby up and taking her. He wanted to hear her scream his name as he took her hard. He wanted her to know she belonged to him. He would kill this guy, Zoran, who thought he owned Abby. His fists tightened on the steering wheel at the thought of someone else taking the innocence that had been his for the taking. He had waited, nurturing Abby into womanhood so he could claim her. He didn't know where the man came from or how he was able to get past all the surveillance equipment he had set up, but he had signed his own death certificate by touching Abby. Abby would have to pay too. She should never have let another man near her. Clay glanced down at the mark on Abby's neck. The first thing he would do was burn it off. She would learn, as she screamed from the pain of having her flesh burned, that she shouldn't have let another touch her. Clay let out a curse, swerving back and forth as he felt something heavy drop into the back of the truck. Zoran dropped out of the sky above the truck, shifting at the last possible moment. He landed with a thump in the back of it. He ignored everything but the man driving the truck. Clay tried to glance back, but he couldn't take his eyes off the road long enough to see anything. He turned around again when he heard what sounded like a growl. Glancing back at the road, he slammed on his brakes as his headlights highlighted the trees blocking the road. Zoran smiled grimly as he held himself steady as the truck came to a shuddering stop. He heard a soft expletive right before he saw the two-wheeled transport behind him lay down on its side, sliding to a stop with the figure on the back of it rolling over and over, finally coming to a stop along the side of the narrow road in an effort to not run into the back of the truck. "Shit!" Clay said, hitting the steering wheel in frustration. First the damn females at the airport, now this. His gaze moved to Abby, who let out a soft moan. It was still a couple of miles before they reached the end of the road, and another 5 miles until they reached the cabin he had been working on for the past 4 years. It was just as well she was waking up, because she was going to have to do some walking. He reached over, jerking her up against him. Tilting her head back, he brushed his lips against hers. "Wake up, baby doll. Time to do some walking. I have some plans for you," Clay said, sliding his hand down over one of Abby's breasts and squeezing it hard. Abby fought through the haze that clouded her mind. She felt lips pressing against hers, then a hand grip her breast, squeezing it hard enough that she cried out in pain. Fighting to get away from the pain, Abby's eyes popped open when she couldn't move her hands. "No!" Abby cried out, trying to push herself up and away from Clay. "Let me go!" Clay gripped Abby's hair painfully in his hand. "Never. I told you, Abby, you belong to me." Clay pushed open the door of the truck, pulling Abby across the seat by her hair. Abby let out another cry of pain as she was pulled out of the truck. Unable to prevent herself from falling, she hit the ground hard. Clay was just bending down to pick her up when he was yanked back and thrown against the trees in front of the truck. Abby cried out again as gentle hands picked her up off the ground. "Hush, Elila, I have you." Abby heard Zoran as if in a dream. "Zoran? Clay, be careful. He has a gun." "Too late, bitch," Clay said from behind Zoran, pointing his gun at Zoran's chest. "So you're the bastard who thinks you can poach on my territory. I planned on killing your ass. Doing it in front of Abby just makes it sweeter." Zoran stood up to his full height with a growl, pushing Abby behind him. He felt both his and his dragon's fury at the male's claim on Abby. Abby whimpered behind him, trying to stay upright. You are sentenced to death for touching my mate, Zoran growled, taking a step toward Clay. Clay, recognizing Zoran was somehow threatening him, pulled the trigger, firing point blank into Zoran's chest. Think you can intimidate me, asshole? You're the one that's dead. Abby screamed as she felt Zoran jerk back against her. Two loud roars filled the air just as a body flew out of the air, tackling Clay from the side. Abby cried out in anguish as Zoran collapsed to the ground in front of her. Abby kneeled in front of him, ignoring the fight between the two figures. "Oh, baby, no," Abby cried. "Please help him," she pleaded with the symbiote around her neck and wrists. "Please." Abby watched as the symbiote on Zoran moved rapidly down to his chest, disappearing under his skin. In moments, she watched as the symbiote quickly healed the wound, pushing the bullet out of Zoran's chest as it moved in and out. Zoran's eyes flew open, narrow slits, as he let out an unearthly growl and surged to his feet. Abby looked up from the ground where she was crying, watching as Zoran shifted into his full dragon form. She had never seen him change in person, only in the shared images of his home world. Within seconds, two other dragons appeared on each side of where Clay and a figure in solid black fought viciously. Clay swung, hitting the figure in black a wicked blow to the head and then the chest, breathing heavily as the figure collapsed in a still heap on the ground. He turned with a bloody knife in his hand toward Zoran, who now stood in full battle armor as a dragon. His eyes widened as he took a step back in horror. He turned to find himself surrounded by two other dragons glaring down at him. Zoran moved toward Clay with a deadly snarl. Clay's mouth opened in a silent scream as he was encased in dragon fire. Soon, nothing remained of him but black ash mixed into the muddy soil of the road. All three dragons turned as the truck which had been following Clay came to a screeching halt. Zoran recognized Abby's truck. The doors flew open, and three females rushed out, only to stop in shock as they saw three dragons. Kara was the first to respond. "Holy shit! And I thought the little gold guys were cute," Kara said, before glancing at the dark figure lying motionless on the ground. "Ariel! Carmen!" Ariel let out a cry, ignoring everything but the still figure on the ground. Kneeling next to Carmen, she turned her over, pulling the dark cap from her blonde hair. A large bruise graced the side of her left cheek, and a trickle of blood flowed from the corner of her nose and mouth. Trisha moved cautiously toward Ariel, while Kara moved toward Abby. Ariel looked up at the three dragons. "Please, can you help her? Please?" she sobbed. Carmen had blood on her shoulder and chest, where Clay had stabbed her. "Please, she's my sister. Help her!" Zoran looked at the still figure. He growled to Keelan and Traylon to take the injured woman and the other two women to the warship. He turned to growl at the tiny woman who had rushed to Abby's side. "Back off, you overgrown lizard, or I'll have you for dinner," the little figure said, as she quickly undid the handcuffs on Abby's wrists. When Abby looked at her silently, Kara shrugged. "I've had to get out of more than one pair in my life. Unfortunately, never in a good situation. Can you figure that?" Abby couldn't help the chuckle that escaped her. Only Kara would threaten a dragon while explaining how she could unlock a pair of handcuffs without a key. Kara helped Abby stand, holding her steady. She jumped when a male hand suddenly appeared. "Shit! What the hell is going on?" Kara asked, looking up at Zoran, who stood towering over her. He gently picked Abby up in his arms as she swayed. "Unfortunately, you have seen too much, little one. You will accompany us," Zoran said, right before he and Abby disappeared.